Hello and welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses. This is a live full-time reaction on our YouTube channel as the Dons were downed 3-0 at Ibrox. I think there's going to be a lot to discuss after that performance. I was told that I should just start the podcast and say that we were shit and we couldn't possibly subject anybody to any more torture after that 90 minutes, Phil. But I think there's a few things that certainly plenty of people have already got out off their chests in the comments. So yeah, we'll pull something together over the next maybe half an hour, 40 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be easy to find much worth talking about from that game because it was a bit of a waste of an evening.
Yeah, I know I put in a message into our group chat that I'd received as well, saying it was probably the most disinterested that we've been in an Aberdeen Rangers game for a long time, as well. Um, yeah, there was something missing from that performance tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you say, I mean, there was just nothing to even really excite you. Every time we got on the ball, it was just you kind of knew we weren't going to do anything with it. There was that sort of lack of expectation because we really just didn't produce anything with any slight chance, and we had to get our foot on the ball. So yeah, just a frustrating evening all around.
Yeah, and any time we did get our foot on the ball, we couldn't keep it under control. Evening, Nielsen, if you're tuning in, we didn't even. I don't know. It felt very much that game like a bit of a training exercise for Rangers. We spoke on the last show about how our tactics would be for this game. We didn't think we would park the bus, so to speak. We thought, well, certainly you thought Jimmy wouldn't kind of abandon his style. I hoped we wouldn't kind of stick with the playing out from the back, but we persisted and once again shot ourselves royally in the foot.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with playing out from the back if you've got the quality of player to do so. I think unfortunately, at the moment we don't, which is just the long and short of it. I mean, and it just made it an uphill battle from there. You know, the way we were lined up, we didn't have, you know, the players or the sort of mindset to then take the game to Rangers. You know, I thought Sutton's comments on Nisbet were really interesting pre-match, where he said that Nisbet always comes short. He's so predictable to play against, and I think as soon as we went 1-0 down, that was just the case. We had no out ball, and just nothing to actually put Rangers under any sort of pressure.
Yeah. We just didn't offer anything. I mean, we've not really offered anything kind of in a way up front over the last few games. A few of you speaking about the positives in the comments. We'll come on to that a little bit later. Michael Taylor saying we looked tired from the first minute. And there's also a comment from Graham Gibb who says, considering how bad we were against Hearts, why would you pick the same 11? Bizarre. Were you surprised to see the same starting 11? I think for me, I was maybe a little surprised not to see Jensen included, given the club made a big deal of the fact that he got his clearance to play. Um, any surprise from you that we opted for the same starting lineup?
Yes and no. I think I would have probably expected a couple of changes. You know, maybe Nielsen to go back into midfield and potentially Dorrington in at centre half. Potentially Ockles out as well. I know that Jimmy has sort of made the comments of the likes of Jensen and even Ockles effectively need a pre-season in itself, um, just due to the sort of time off they've had in between competitive games. So not really surprised Jensen wasn't in from the start, to be honest. But yeah, still would have maybe liked to see a couple of changes from the Hearts game.
Yeah, I know Ockles. We said we wouldn't judge him based on the Hearts game, but I was a bit surprised maybe to see him start, and I'm really not kind of sure what's going on with Shaden Morris just now. and his lack of minutes. And I think for me, even during that game tonight, the surprise was to see how quickly after the first double change we then went on to bring him on. Kind of almost made sense to just make a triple change.
Yeah, and I think, by the time Morris, Jensen, and Polvara came on, it felt like almost too little too late. We actually started to look a lot more positive by that point in the evening, but the game was well and truly gone at that point, and it could have been more than one, in the first half if it wasn't for Ross Doon in goal.
Yeah, I think we owe a lot to Ross Doon tonight. Quite good that he's suddenly pulled pulled out a couple of good performances off the back of some criticism on here, but without some of the saves that he made, he definitely the score could have been a lot higher. I mean, admittedly, obviously Rangers getting a couple of goals late on, but I think I saw Kaiser comment if it was 8-0 Rangers, it wouldn't have been flattering. It probably sums up the night that we've had. I think going back to the starting lineup comment that Graham put in, I think when you look at the first goal and then moments later when Nielsen was so far out of the back line that Rangers exposed it and Ross pulled off a great save, despite his lack of minutes, was there maybe a surprise that Dorrington didn't come in alongside Tobers and allow Nielsen back into the maybe comfort of midfield or the comfort of the bench?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you could have probably hooked any of the midfield three or Nielsen, really. I don't think any of them really gave us anything. Palaversa struggled. Clarkson was anonymous for the most part. Shinnie really slack, and then obviously Nielsen not really covering himself in glory at centre half. So really could have came on for any of them. To be honest, I was kind of surprised that we didn't see him at half time, especially for one of probably Palaversa or Nielsen, in my opinion.
Yeah, and when we go to Ibrox or Parkhead in these big games, you can't be making silly mistakes. Um, and well, Nielsen really summed up a silly mistake with that error. He was under absolutely no pressure um, from that pass from Ross doing it. It's not the first time he's kind of conceded possession under no pressure and resulted in a goal. I just couldn't believe how bad that was.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell that I think the two games in quick succession um, sort of were affecting the legs. Even later on, looking at Balogun's goal, it was a really lazy jump at that point of the evening. So yeah, not really surprised that he was looking a little bit shite.
Yeah, really frustrating and good to see. Better late than never. Maybe like a decent Aberdeen performance. Callum has joined the podcast for the debrief. Callum, we've just been speaking about kind of giving away possession cheaply and Nielsen in midfield. A couple of comments coming in. Ashbrook House mentioning bizarre how many errors we're making as a team across the board, passing the ball straight out. How many times? And then there was another comment I saw come in as well. There's a lot of you with thoughts, so apologies if I can't find that comment. But James Duncan messaged me pre-match and said, "Can we make a note of how many times we either concede cheap possession or give the ball away?" And I think by half time we'd got it up to about 8, including twice when we tried to play out neat football in our own half. I've seen a couple of comments about Callum. We need to ditch this style of playing out from the back and go long. But do we have an out ball?
No, we don't. The amount of times it goes up to Nisbet and it just doesn't stick, or he tries something fancy and tries to flick it on when there's just no one making that run on, or if someone wins a header and there's nothing. Even if they win the header, there's no one there. To get there, it's. I've lost count of how many times it's happened, and we're just giving the ball away cheaply so many times. Sort of as you mentioned, there, like with passing the ball out of play so many times, even when Nisbet was through but offside, then passing the ball to Topi Keskinen instead of just turning and running and on goal, passing it off the park as well. Yeah, there's so many simple things going wrong and poor touches as well. I just don't understand where it's coming from, because it really is the basic stuff. But we don't have that out ball. Nisbet's not mobile enough really to run the channels to get in behind. He's not really big enough to hold up the ball, either bring those other players into play. It's not working at the moment. You'd hope with these new signings coming in, and by the time they bed in or bring more in, hopefully, unfortunately, I don't have any names unless Phil does in future. But it's not working at the moment, and it is a little bit of a concern. The fact we're sticking to these principles, and I do wonder how much it is down to sort of Emir Bajrami going out, because apparently it was him doing a lot of the work, with the wingers, a lot of the attacking play, and the attacking play has fallen off a cliff. However, it was probably before he left that happened, mind you.
Yeah, I don't know how much difference one coach is going to make to our goal scoring just now, but it is poor. But the comment on screen just now from Stephen Anderson, Callum, I think kind of goes a little bit into what you've just been speaking about there. Can't defend, pass, score, create space. Surely these should be a given for pro footballers. Grim viewing. Before you joined us, me and Phil were speaking about kind of how uninterested we were in that game, because we were offering nothing for large parts of that game. There's been some comments, I know you'll have maybe seen some of the notifications coming through on the Twitter page about when does the blame for this shift to Jimmy Tillene. I'm not saying tonight's result is Jimmy's fault entirely, but for me, I'm still looking at a lot of the players. Jimmy Tillene, I know we've certainly not heard any of his post-match comments, but he's mentioned before about leadership and the requirement for that within this team. I look at Graham Shinney, felt again like another passenger tonight. Nielsen, he's supposed to be a senior player. Another mistake from him that leads to a goal. When do these players who have seen off previous managers start taking responsibility for these poor performances?
Yeah, there's got to be accountability. Like Nelson's mistake today, no excuses for that. A simple pass from Duhan, and he fails to control it. We concede. And well, until the latter stages of the game, it looked like that was what was going to be the difference between 3 points and a point. And then, thankfully, Ross Duhan bailing us out at the weekend from Severin Nelson's other mistake. It's a real concern. Shinney, so poor tonight. I thought that just so many of them, I've said it already, but it really did irk me. Just failing to control the ball or just hold on to the ball and give us a little bit of a chance. There was a few instances where we did look to break, and then, it's an overhit pass straight out for a goal kick or straight through to Liam Kelly, who suspect goalkeeper at Motherwell probably. Towards the latter stages, didn't really test him at all tonight, other than Clarkson from his own half or just inside their half. It's not good enough. And previously a lot of it has come down to the management. In this case, it is a lot of such simple stuff going wrong that I just don't understand how it could possibly go wrong, because it's schoolboy stuff. It really is.
Yeah, it is. And well, the first goal especially was schoolboy, but to flip it, Phil, there will be fans that want kind of questions asked of the manager. So if we kind of look a little bit of that, some of the comments that have been coming in, West Coast Dawn saying another doing, another loss, 12 without a win is unacceptable. Graham Gibb again commenting that Jimmy's decision making has been very suspect recently, complete opposite to his decision making earlier in the season. For me tonight, I questioned the sub at the time when he brought Dorrington on for Palaversa, but obviously that was to then allow Nielsen to move into midfield. Not sure if it was overly necessary at the time. But I think this point from Chris Forbes is quite interesting, saying that the blame starts to shift to Jimmy when he continues to give these players a pass. Senior players need to be dropped and no less. And that takes me on to a screenshot you shared in our group chat specifically about Nielsen. So I thought that point was quite relevant.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was just waiting to come and yeah, say that. I mean, it was stuff going wrong that, under eights are taught a 5 yard pass. Um, but I think as well, looking at it through that perspective, shifting the blame to Jimmy, I think there was maybe an air of stubbornness in his decision making tonight. Admittedly, he doesn't have the strongest bench in the world, but um, as our friend Joe put in a group chat that I'm in, Nielsen's quickly becoming Jimmy's version of Anthony Stewart, where he just seems undroppable because he's his signing. And I think, Nielsen maybe fairly or unfairly to some people has came under a fair bit of slack, mainly from me on this podcast. But his performances have dropped. Again, I don't know if it is just a case of his minutes haven't been managed accordingly and he's just completely overplayed, and that's now starting to show. Similarly with Shinnie tonight, I think everyone's kind of known for a while he's not a 2 game a week player. He really struggles, and it showed tonight. Really, really slack on the ball, no real fight. And yeah, I think it is quite right that a lot of your senior players and your leaders, even going for likes of Nicky Devlin tonight, have a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah, and Callum, we were speaking about Kevin Nisbet and, well, his performance, I guess we'll call it, or maybe lack of. The stat that Ian Crocker mentioned during the game, that Pape is still our top goal scorer and he's been out for all this time, says a lot about the lack of goals that have been coming in this team. It was a concern of ours going into the season, obviously without Bojan Miovski. At the start of the season, we saw the goals spread around, but there's been a real drop-off in, well, actually chances, really, let alone goals scored.
Yeah, I mean, Topic Eskinen, maybe the brightest spark. I'm looking most likely at the moment. And then, if he's not finding the back of the net, then we are very much struggling. It's really highlighting how much the need for a striker that can find the back of the net and also suits our style of play probably as well. It highlights how much of a pressing matter that is this January, and recruitment's been very good so far. I'm very happy with how it's gone. Finding a striker, however, that will score goals is the most difficult task, and we'll probably see that as the last edition, one would imagine, because it's such a difficult thing to do at any point, let alone in January, which is notoriously difficult to find players in. But without it's crazy that Pape Habib Gueye is still the top goal scorer, and he's been out for however long, 10 weeks. I don't know what it is at this stage, maybe more. And it's a real worry because the goals were being spread around a lot. Everyone was popping up at decisive moments for us on that winning run earlier in the season, and I think that maybe masked things a little bit about how much we were really lacking a proper number 9. And it's really not working out for Kevin Nisbet at this moment. And to be honest, whilst I've been critical about his lack of hold up play rather, or lack of linking with forwards, at the same time, the service to him is non-existent at this stage. If you think back to his goal at Ross County, that's the type of things he puts away. He's a real penalty box striker, and he's not getting chances like that, is he?
He's not, but in fairness to Kevin Nisbet, he was doing a lot of defensive work tonight. There was a couple of instances where he was back having to head the ball back to Ross doing. He's putting himself about. He's showing a bit of fight, but ultimately we need him to be putting the ball in the back of the net, and he's not doing it. Phil, the kind of comments I was speaking about at the start of the episode were coming from Neve. Her dad, Willie, was giving me some one-liners. Obviously, put that one in the group chat about the first half, that if it wasn't for Ross, we'd have been getting an absolute doing. David McLennan mentions here, I'm almost at the point of thinking some of our youth players need to be given a chance. Willie was saying to me tonight, do we have too many foreigners in the team that don't understand the importance of this fixture, given, in the sense that there seemed to be a lack of effort. You look at how Dundee applied themselves against both Rangers and Celtic over the course of the last week, albeit I do think the fact that games was at Dens is a little bit different when you're going to Ibrox. The reason why I bring that comment up from David was because you mentioned it on the show last week, or actually at the start of the week, with the loan signing, that when will we see some of these younger guys get a chance? Obviously, Fletcher Boyd, we saw at the back end of last season on the bench tonight, still not had any minutes this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of future planning as well. If we are setting the ambition of attempting to get a European spot next year, we're going to need Aberdeen developed as well as homegrown developed players within the squad. And it may be highly likely that they're going to need to be called upon. So I think the fact that we're so reluctant to give them any sort of minutes will more than likely come and bite us in the foot when we've got, a potential 18-year-old Fletcher Boyd who's having to try and come into the team on a big European night, and he's played a grand total of 2 games at the tail end of the 23-24 season. So it's an issue, I think, that goes across the whole of Scottish football, especially the top flight. Minutes to young players are an absolute premium at the moment. And it is something that I think I would like to see improve, because we've got a good youth setup and we've got good players coming through, and I'm refusing to believe that any of them, based on tonight's performance, would have done any worse than what Nielsen would have.
I wouldn't want to throw them in, though, at this stage when we're on a run like this. A youth player going in and it potentially going wrong for them could make things even worse. I don't know if now's the time, though, and a lot of our players, as was mentioned in the comments as well by Colin Gale, a lot of the players that would be maybe more first team ready are out on loan right now. Alfie Bavidge, I mean, people have their thoughts on Ryan Duncan, but he's been involved. Jack Milne injured as well, and the guys like Fletcher Boyd and those guys that won, a lot of them that won the league, are very young as well. And I don't know if throwing them in at this point when we're on such a wretched run would do them much good, or us really.
I wouldn't have thrown them in tonight, but I think in general, as a club, I think we should be doing a little bit more.
Probably when we were on that good run, bleeding them in, giving them 10 minutes off the bench or whatever would have been, well, it would have been very good, I suppose. But I also guess that a lot of the times in that run, we were coming up with late winners from the likes like Peter Ambrose against Dundee United, for example. But yeah, we probably should have bled them in a little bit more on that run. I'd agree there.
I think, it's kind of a catch-22 for the drum that we beat about our academy. We've not seen many academy players coming through into the first team over the past year, certainly on a regular basis. But, I know the club kind of would rather see them going out and actually developing, such as Alfie Bavidge, obviously Alfie Stewart out on loan at Inverness as well. Blair Mackenzie's at Montrose. You've also mentioned Jack Milne being injured just now as well. So it's something to keep an eye on, because obviously first team chances are limited at the club. But I just think for the noise that we make around our academy, we haven't seen it all too much. If we go back to
to go on that as well, Glenn, like at the moment, when you look at how injury riddled our squad is and how many youth players have been on the bench in recent weeks, you're then just limiting your bench even more, because you are, like you say, in this horrible catch-22 where you feel like you can't bring them on because who wants to destroy an 18-year-old's confidence? And then you're limiting yourself to literally having about 3 senior players who could come off the bench in a scenario, and one of them being Peter Ambrose half the time.
Yeah, but then if they're on the bench, for me, if they're included in the matchday squad, it goes back to that, is if they're young enough, they're good enough. So if they're on the bench, for me, they've got to be ready to be getting involved. They shouldn't just be there just to fill the quota on that. Greg Kearney mentions that something's happened since that 3-3 draw at Hibs. This can't solely be on the players, but of course we can't criticise Jimmy Talleen. It does feel like that late Rocky Bashiri goal has been somewhat of a watershed moment for this squad. I think for me, actually, really the turning point feels like the defeat at Hampden, the 6-0 game to Celtic. Only one win since then, and that came in the very next game against Dundee. it's so difficult to pin it on one specific factor, though, Callum, since then, isn't it?
Yeah, something has gone very wrong. I think I thought the 6-0 pumping from Celtic could have been really, really bad. We bounced back, beat Dundee. The Hibs one, though, I think if we hold on to that, go down to Easter Road, a place where we don't do very well, and hold on for the win and in such a euphoric way with Essa Sokka's overhead kick, then we wouldn't be in the position where we are right now. Just simply because I think that would have given a little bit more added belief as well as the Dundee game, and then also dropping points to Hearts and things wouldn't look so bad either had we gone to Easter Road and won. But it is difficult to pinpoint, and it's unbelievable almost at times. I think Chris Boyd actually said after the Hearts game, it's like almost impossible to go on like this many games without actually winning in this league. And unfortunately, I do tend to agree. But like these players that we saw coming up in these moments, we mentioned about the goal scorers, they don't become bad players overnight, but it almost looks like they did, which is just baffling to me.
And it can't be from bad management, because it's the same squad of players that we got all those points from. What was it we said last time? Was it 31 out of 33 points? And since then we've got 5 from a possible, well, now 36. But as Kaiser mentions, Phil, we've got injuries, yes, but apart from Pape, tonight, who did we really miss of the players injured? Because to be fair to Ross Doohan, he probably produced just exactly what I'd be expecting Mitov to produce tonight.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was exactly what I was going to say. The only real, first teamers would have been Mitov and Malloy. Mackenzie as well, you could argue, if he is actually out injured. But, like you say, I don't think it would have been a different result with Mitov in goals. The 3 goals that went in, Mitov wouldn't have saved them either, really. And I think Doohan's really came in a bit of a game, which is quite good. But yeah, I don't know. For me, is it maybe a confidence thing? I think the moment really stuck out for me that made me think, confidence is maybe the main issue was Keskinen. As Callum said earlier about the sort of ball into Nisbet, who then fired it back awfully. I think just before then, Keskinen had a chance to run into space down the wing, and he turned back on himself to play a ball back to Shinnie for literally no reason. And if Keskinen's on low confidence, considering he's been probably one of our best performers, especially in attacking sense throughout recent games, then God, other players must be on rock bottom.
Yeah, and I think as well, similarly, Clarkson took the ball into feet, and as James McFadden said on commentary, his first thought was to go backwards instead of, move forward. And the comment on screen from Chris Forbes, going back to thinking that this kind of run stems from the semi-final, it feels like something much deeper changed that day. Says we've become cautious and weak-minded ever since. And I think, Callum, that's kind of been, I certainly think weak-minded is a very fair comment from Chris. Cautious, possibly, but I saw Stewie Walker say on Twitter earlier is that teams aren't really kind of having to beat us anymore. We're beating ourselves. And, well, the first goal is a prime example of that tonight. But I think the two are kind of linked, because it is a team devoid of any confidence and ideas. And when teams are then getting easy goals, they're probably thinking, when's this going to stop?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about the Hearts game, to be honest. So much of that between both sides was just passing the ball between the defenders and before it goes long, and then it's the other team does the same thing. It looked like two teams totally bereft of bravery and confidence, and that's certainly the case with us. It feels like, and when they do try things, they're not coming off, which obviously doesn't help. But a lot of the times the ball going up to Nisbet and nobody's near him for him to be able to knock it onto or whatever, and it's really, really worrying, and I don't know how it comes back. I mean, playing Elgin City this weekend, normally you think that's great, like a cup draw like that. However, I am worried about it. Again, not I don't know if it's the first time it's been mentioned. I don't know if you mentioned it in the first 10 minutes, but the Darvel thing has certainly scarred all of us. And it does feel like it's possible once again, if we're honest, because of the way we're on, the run we're on. However, at the same time, it's a game we should go and win, and you'd hope that if we can go and win, players get amongst the goals, maybe a little bit of confidence will come back. And I know, we're they're further down the divisions than us, but we need to treat it as this is a game that we should be winning. Let's go and do it. Play the best team available. None of this rotating nonsense. It's nonsense. Go out there and win the game. Hopefully get some confidence back and just some feel-good feeling. Just a win. A win. I've forgotten what it's like. Earlier in the season, I forgot what it was like to lose, and now I've forgotten what it's like to win. And it's been a real roller coaster of emotions so far.
Yeah. Roller coaster is definitely right for what I feel my emotions are doing just now. And fear is certainly an emotion that I have going up to Elgin this weekend. And interesting though, Callum, you say put out our best team and treat it like a kind of a high class game. What's our best team going into this game then?
One without Sivert Nelson in defence, anyway, at least. To be honest, I wouldn't play Graham Shinney or Sivert Nelson off the basis of things. I think it's a good opportunity for Paul Vara to come in and start. I think his bravery and confidence on the ball and he looks to make things happen. And, obviously coming back from injury in this bad spell has probably not helped Danny Povara get back in the side. Start him in centre midfield with Palaversa. Dorrington, get him in at the back. Try and give him and Tobers a chance of building a partnership. I think. And well, to be honest, at left back, it's Jensen's probably going to come in if McGarry, who I thought was very good again tonight, as well as against Hearts, unfortunately might not make it, would depend on the severity of the injury. It's a real shame that he appears to be made of glass, because it looks like he's coming on to a game and then he goes off injured.
Yeah, I know. How disappointing was that tonight, Phil, that, we did have positives. Obviously, we've mentioned doing Jimmy McGarry. I thought quite ironic given his injury run, creates our best chance of the game and goes off injured. He was good. I thought Tobers looked solid. And, I mean, says a lot. Again, for me, questions maybe why he didn't start. But possibly you could chuck Jensen up there because he was a real bright spark. I know the introduction of him prompted you to put your phone down and pay attention to the game a little bit more to see what he was like. But despite everything we saw, there was a couple of individual performances that we can take from the game going into Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm always going to be an advocate for James McGarry. I don't know why. I've just had a soft spot for him since day one. I just quite like him. But no, like you say, I think he definitely created probably the best chance. It's unfortunate we were so slack in the middle that he only really got one chance to get on the ball going forward, because every other time he made an overlap and run, we gave it away, and then he had to bolt back because half time he was caught out of position because of that. But yeah, likewise, I thought Jensen looked good when he came on. That run that got the corner not long after coming on was good to see. Tobers as well looked like a Rolls Royce of a defender at times, really, really quality. So yeah, a little bit to take from that in a positive sense. And again, you're obviously doing playing out the skin at times to keep it to single figures.
Yeah, I thought Tobers was good. Callum, not sure if you're questioning that a little bit there.
He was fine, but he did pass the ball, a simple 10-yard pass straight off the pitch again, and I did compare him to a better looking Rubizic. So it's,
yeah, but you can't single him out for passing the ball poorly.
No, I know.
Every player did that tonight.
No, I know. He did look. He looked better. He looked better, and I think once he's able to get a centre back partnership with someone who's not a lunatic, it'll be okay, and I'll feel a lot better about things. But it is difficult for him coming in as well. He didn't play for a few weeks prior. He's come in. We're on a terrible run, and we just sort of hoped he would fix everything. And unfortunately, that's not happened yet. So maybe that's why I maybe just got a bit too ahead of myself. But he looked a bit less. He's looking a bit less chaotic than the two we had at the back prior.
Yeah. There's a few people kind of mentioning in the comments tonight, we're going to come on to the Elgin game a little bit, because we could sit here and dwell on what was a really poor performance and poor result, but we're not really going to achieve anything, because we might as well just kind of recap the last 12 games. But Johnny Main kind of sums it up saying, Jimmy's going nowhere. Tonight doesn't change that. We need to stay the course. Although it is hard after tonight, doesn't mean we can't ask questions. And I think that is kind of really, probably, despite how much we've waffled for the last 35 minutes, a perfect summary of the situation that we find ourselves in. The board has very much backed the manager financially, as we discussed on the previous episode, Phil. He isn't going anywhere, and I know a few people put in there the comments that if we lose on Saturday, could that be the end of Jimmy Tilleen? But if Jim Goodwin can't get sacked after losing to Darvel, Jimmy Tilleen can't get sacked after losing to Elgin.
No, I don't think even the people who maybe are posting it tongue in cheek, or maybe not even tongue in cheek, posting that Jimmy could be on thin ice on Twitter, for example, tonight. I don't think they even quite believe it themselves. Like Johnny said, I think it's right to sort of have questions around some of the decisions Jimmy's made on the recent run, and I think Jimmy would actually welcome that, because I think his standards of himself are probably just as high as ours. And I don't think he would really shy away from that, and he's not shied away from it so far. So, no, I think Jimmy's here to stay. I'm glad he's here to stay. You can see what he's trying to do. The run we were on at the start of the season showed, the potential that he has if he can get a squad fighter on all cylinders. And like I say, I think it is just, at the amount of time it will take him to get that squad sort of together and bin off some deadwood, perhaps.
Yeah, and I think, the point on screen from Stephen McPhee Callum's quite relevant as well, saying that Jimmy's other bad runs in his management career were also with squads in transition, and he went on to success. The 10 wins in a row is the anomaly here. Look at our league position. It's what we'd have hoped for. I think we do have to still remain, I don't know what the right word is, realistic, which I'm probably coming to the wrong person when we're speaking about realism here, that despite that extraordinary start that we had to the season, we've almost become a little bit of the victims of our own success. You mentioned it before, we'd forgot what losing felt like. Now we don't know what winning feels like. If Jimmy had gone win, draw, lose, and then kind of repeated that cycle, we probably wouldn't be in this kind of rut, or questions wouldn't be being asked in the manner that they are.
No, they wouldn't. If we were fourth and our results had followed a normal pattern instead of whatever the hell has gone on this season, then yeah, we'd be happy. We'd be happy with the improvement. We certainly would. I think it just it's a concern that this spell has gone on so long, despite our sort of tongue-in-cheek optimism, or maybe just real optimism, certainly on some of my part anyway, during that run. I think there was always the expectation that there was going to be a bad spell. He wasn't a miracle worker, although it did seem like that. There was going to be a bad spell. I didn't expect it to go on so long, but at the same time, nobody expected us to go on that winning streak for so long either. It's just been totally, totally bizarre. But at the same point, we are still fourth somehow. And, he's beginning to get his signings in now as well. And, okay, they'll take a little bit of time to bed in and things like that. But hopefully we will get. I do believe we will get there. But we will work something out. And, we're sitting here saying, like, we don't know how these things are going so wrong. I'm sure Jimmy Thielman's probably thinking similar at times. And that it's... I just don't know how it ends. But it will end. It will end. It certainly will. And hopefully it ends this Saturday. We win, and then we'll just go on another amazing winning streak, and it'll be fine.
I feels like it has to come to an end this Saturday for a lot of the fan base's confidence and maybe belief as well. And I think it does take us nicely on to the cup tie, and for me, I'm now glad this game even more so is not on TV in case it does go horribly wrong. Michael Taylor says he wants to be positive for Saturday, but right now there's nothing to back it up to be positive. Elgin will really fancy their chances. I think they'll absolutely fancy their chances given the game is at Borough Briggs as well. Kaiser saying we're absolutely not accepting getting beat from Elgin. Sack the lot if it does happen. Johnny Main said earlier as well, does the squad have the stomach for this game? You know, we've spoken about this squad being low on confidence and, you know, needing something to go right. Is Phil a cup tie against lower league opposition that are having a good season themselves, Elgin? You know, despite their injury problems of their own, they're still more than holding their own in that playoff position in League Two. They will fancy their chances with an Aberdeen side coming north without a win in 12.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been seeing the turning points coming for about a month now, and it's still not came. So hopefully this Saturday might prove me right. But yeah, it's a tough one because, like you say, part of me wants to try and be positive because I can't go on with being this miserable about Aberdeen forever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like if Elgin get the first goal, I have no idea if we're even gonna have the bottle to come back from that, because we just don't seem to have the balls, to be honest. Um, but no, I think we've got to look at this game in the sense of Elgin have a handful of fit defenders. I think they had one out and out defender playing across their back line last game out. So surely you've got to be looking at, especially for the attacking players, to just go and get at them and try and, like Callum said, build up that confidence, get a few goals, and try and get back on the horse.
In terms of building back the confidence, then, Callum, to come back to you, what are you expecting from this weekend? You know, we're seeing people saying that we need to be going out and battering Elgin. People wanting probably us to win by 3 or 4 goals. I know I said on the previous show, right now I would take a 1-0 win over Elgin, just get us through, get that win. Do we need to see, you know, a comfortable win, a positive performance, get that attacking football back that we saw in the early stages of this season, or is the most important thing just getting our name in the next round?
That is always the most important thing, ultimately. However, I given this current state we're in, I think normally if we were just as we mentioned, sort of just going through like regular patterns of results, anything getting us through against Elgin would be fine. It would be fine. We're in the next round, and we're one step closer to Hampden. That's great. However, to really, really bring back some confidence, I think I do agree that we do need to batter them. That is the hope. Anyway, that being said, regardless if it is a 1-0 win, as you say, I will just be happy that we've finally won a game. But I really do want us to see out, just go out there and build that confidence back up, because God, we need a little bit of hope here, don't we?
We do, and I want to come to you again, Callum, for the point that Phil made there about what happens if Elgin score the first goal, and you know whether or not this team has the confidence to turn things around. Given again, as I said, this being a home game for Elgin, you know the romance of the cup, etc. How important does that first goal feel on Saturday? Because there will be a nervousness surrounding that away support going into this game, and that won't be helped if we fall behind. Is it important that Aberdeen get the first goal on Saturday?
Yeah, it is vitally important. It will be just again. Sorry to keep mentioning them, but Darvel, it will be a feeling like, oh shit, all over again. If Elgin score first, and then it is worried about them getting back into the game. For example, I know it's a totally different kettle of fish, going down at Ibrox 1-0, but there wasn't until sort of the 10 minutes before their second goal tonight. I never really thought we could go and get back into this game at Ibrox. There wasn't really anything to show us that at all. And I guess, as I say, it's a different kettle of fish at Elgin. but then there is that thought of, oh no, here we go again if we do go 1-0 down. I mean, in every game, ideally, we go 1-0 up early on, and that just settles the nerves. But in this case, especially, it's really important that we score first. And, if Elgin do go up 1-0, they're not going to shirk away from doing all the dirty work they need to do and all the dark arts to try and hold on to that. And you do then worry about us being able to break them down and turn it around.
I think, it's one of those that I have confidence in us breaking Elgin down, but it's actually taking our chances, Phil. And that's what Stephen Bain poses the question. He says, can see us having all the possession, but the final ball is what's worrying. And I think, certainly over the last two games against Hearts and tonight against Rangers, Callum mentioned there the last 15 minutes. I said it in the chat. I said, tell you what, I can see something happening. It's because we won a corner in the 76th minute, and with two in a row, I thought, we've maybe turned a little bit of attacking intent here. Is that the worry for this weekend, that despite what we might do in terms of, keeping the ball and trying to tire Elgin out, we've still ultimately got to put the ball in the back of the net?
Yeah, it's one of those things. I think maybe the only player who I'd feel confident with the ball landing at their feet in the 18-yard box at the moment and taking their chance would be Keskinen. And even then, I'm not even probably 100% confident in that fact. I think just nothing really on the top end of the pitch that's inspiring much belief from myself. And similarly, we've just been so prone to being slack on the ball and slack off the ball, really, defensively, that there just doesn't seem to be that quality. And, even though people might say, okay, it's League Two opposition, you're still going to need that bit of quality to do something with the chance.
And in terms of quality, Callum, how much does that need to come from set pieces? We saw tonight, I mentioned those corners, but they were pretty much catching practice for Liam Kelly. Me and Phil spoke about on the last episode in the Hearts game with those free kicks that we got in the second half, which again were heading practice for the Hearts back line. We've not seen any real quality or any sort of threat from our set pieces. Again, in games like this, you have to produce the moments of quality when you're on top and take advantage of that.
I would say I hope that we're not relying on set pieces to beat Elgin, in fairness. But at the same point, desperate times call for desperate measures. We've not been good with set pieces since Pape's injury. And I don't know how much of that was down to Pape's quality or if people just being a bit unaware of maybe what he could do. I don't know. But we've really not done much. I can't actually remember a goal coming from a set piece directly, other than that.
I think as well, it's like you say, it's so recurring, and it doesn't even matter who is on them. I think I've seen both Palaversa and Clarkson fail to beat the first man at a corner on numerous occasions in the same games.
Yeah.
And then our answer is Graham Shinney to take them.
Yeah, which is even worse. And yeah, and you mentioned if it's not the first man, Liam Kelly, notoriously not very commanding in his box, a bit of a flapper, but he just comes out and collects them. Nobody putting any pressure on him, and he does it with ease. It's baffling. It really is.
In terms of Clarkson, he's another player that's getting a bit of criticism tonight. Callum, me and Phil spoke about him being a frustrating player, but he is, for me, as frustrating as he is, I can't fault the effort that he's putting in. Similar to Topi, really, in that sense, a player that's trying their best, but things aren't quite coming off right now.
Yeah. Someone mentioned in the comments that he's a bit of an enigma, and I totally agree, because he does things and he makes passes that you feel like nobody else on the pitch could really do. But so much of it's not coming off right now, and people have mentioned about it. Chris Forbes is saying he's living off the hype of his loan, heart of a mouse and passion of a pebble. I've seen a few people question his sort of heart as well. I think he tries. I think a lot of frustration comes in from sort of shirking challenges a little bit as well. And I don't know, it's really, really difficult, because you feel like in that 10, with his type of passing, he could really, split defenses, but it's not happening. And Sam Gordon mentioning, when he's off it, and that is really the case. But at the same time, I can't really think of anything where, even this season, where he's ran the show, he's ran the game like what we saw during his loan spell.
Yeah, and I think, that's, again, for me, going back to the point about players lacking confidence right now. It feels like Clarkson is lacking a little bit of confidence, especially. I think you make an excellent point on the shirking of challenges as well. That for me is a big frustration. If we go back to the cup game coming up at the weekend, Phil, no replays in the Scottish Cup. Does that, I don't know, does that give Elgin a better advantage going into this weekend? Does that actually suit us? If you think back to the FA Cup last weekend, you look at Spurs being taken to extra time and then, managing to win comfortably in extra time. Is it a benefit more for us not having a replay?
Potentially. I don't really fancy the pressure of a potential 120 minutes in the legs plus a penalty shootout on our current confidence drought. So potentially a replay would be better for us to regroup in front of an even bigger Aberdeen crowd, although I have no doubts the majority of Borough will be somewhat of a Don's persuasion, even if they're in the Elgin end. But yeah, if we can't get it done in 90 minutes, then you might have to come and console me in whatever part of the terrace I am, because I don't think I'll be able to cope with that mentally.
Yeah, I think it could be a long day on Saturday potentially. I think it's going to be frustrating for large parts. We saw an unchanged 11 tonight at Ibrox. Callum, do you think we'll see changes this weekend?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. As I mentioned, I hope Dorrington comes in. You'd feel that Jensen comes in at left back. He might be the only other option at left back by that point, in fairness. And I'd like to see Paloversa and Polvara pulling the strings in the middle of the park. As I said, perfect opportunity for Polvara to come in after his injury and get good minutes in the legs, which would only stand him in good stead. And he deserves a chance because, Shinnie and Nelson in there haven't exactly been set in the heather alight, have they?
I think, it's interesting because, we speak about playing our best team. I guess right now we maybe don't know what our best team is, but we're speaking about playing, I'm sure, not playing two players that Jimmy Talene will have identified as leaders in Graham Shinnie and Nielsen. But right now, I think that midfield desperately needs freshened up. I also think we need out and out centre backs going into this game. Shaden Morris, a player that people are speaking about. Ockles, tonight, again, like the Hearts game, a player desperately in need of minutes. Maybe a game against Elgin's more suited than a game at Ibrox. But Phil, you're going to probably bang the drum of putting Topi on that left instead of the right-hand side of midfield?
Yes, absolutely. I think he shines best when he's out on the left wing. Whether, like you said, Ockles is in desperate need of the minutes, whether right wing is a position he can somewhat play, and if he wants to stick with those two as the wingers and just swap them over, potentially that'll, bear more fruit to our labours. But yeah, much like Callum, I think Shinnie and Nielsen have looked off at playing 2 games in a week. This would technically be a third. I don't think they've really got that in them, no matter how much leadership they might bring to the team. They've just were off the boil massively this evening. And personally, I think even on this run, when Polvaras came off the bench, he's improved the midfield, and he's been a positive on the game. So I think whatever way we can get him into that midfield, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think he really controls that midfield a lot more effectively, really looks to put his foot on the ball. And I definitely would like to see him start this weekend. But I think this is an interesting point from Johnny Main as well about Ockles needing minutes. But Jensen came on and showed heaps more potential than Ockles has it in 2 games. I know they're playing in different positions, but Jensen's also had 3 weeks out, but he looked really lively. And Callum, obviously you mentioned McGarry going off injured. Jensen is absolutely a player I'm excited to see hopefully start this weekend.
Yeah, I'd like to see him just come in and start. And I would have probably liked it to be for Devlin, to give Devlin a little bit of a chance of a breather as well. However, that's probably not going to be the case at this stage with McGarry going off injured without knowing the extent of it. You're probably not going to risk him anyway. But I'd be very much happy for Jensen to come in. He looked a real bright spark against Rangers, of very few. And I'd like to give him that chance. And I suppose with the Ockles thing, Jensen did show more than Ockles, but although Ockles has been in and around at Preston, Jensen's probably played more football more recently than him, because Ockles has been there the whole season, barely played, whereas Jensen was playing every week. Was it 2 seasons? He's played every single game, I think, at his former club that I'm not going to attempt to pronounce.
Yeah, good to see you're joining that bandwagon as well. But I think it's an interesting point you make, Callum, because if McGarry is fit, I wouldn't be opposed to putting Jensen in at right back and giving, we're speaking about resting Shinnie and Nielsen. I wouldn't be opposed to resting Devlin. Based on what I've seen from Jensen tonight, I think he'd be more than capable of filling in for Devlin at a right wing back. I think the only thing that I'm sure will be going through some fans' minds, as well as Jimmy Tillene's, is we don't want to be making too many changes and being seen to be disrespectful to Elgin. And if something went wrong on Saturday, because equally the questions will be asked that, he should have been playing these players. We shouldn't have gone with a weaker lineup. But for me, whatever lineup we go with should be enough to beat Elgin.
Yeah, and also I don't know at what point it's considered a weaker lineup when the lineup that has been playing most of the weeks in recent times hasn't been delivering results, I suppose. And people have been calling for Povara to come in anyway. I don't think people would be certainly against Dorrington coming in at centre back, an actual recognised centre half, given Nilsson's last 2 errors there. And likewise, we might not have any other option, than to play Jensen at left back at this stage.
Yeah, I think, it's going to be interesting to see how we approach the game. As I said, there's going to be nerves, rightly so, I think, from many in the Aberdeen ranks. But again, I think that just comes with the territory with an away game in the Scottish Cup. But as I said, I think regardless of what lineup we go with, we should have confidence that this team can deliver a result despite the run that we're on. I think it just naturally comes with the fact that we're on this run, that nerves will be associated with it. Phil, in terms of, I guess, one final thing at the weekend, we're obviously speaking about progress being the most important thing from Saturday. Are you equally wanting to see a bit more in terms of performance levels with the St Mirren game coming up? Because obviously we need to start picking up points in the league again.
Well, exactly. It feels like we're coming into full circle. Obviously, St Mirren was where the run came to a grinding halt and the losses appeared. So yeah, that's not going to be great for the psyche of anyone in the Aberdeen camp. If we're still sort of looking like we're underperforming, even despite a win, if it looks like we're, if we've ground out that win and struggled to get there, Stephen Robinson's probably going to be rubbing his hands as we rock up to the Schmeiser. So yeah, I think performance on the pitch is equally as important as the scoreline. If we win 4-0 and it's these 4 scrappy goals, there might still be a little bit of concern there that we're not, still quite producing the quality that the squad clearly has, which is the frustrating thing about it all.
Yeah, well, I hope you're not turning up to the Smiza in 2 weeks because the game's at Pittodrie. So,
oh, is it? Oh, sorry, sorry, Glenda. I apologise.
So enjoy your trip to Paisley. Then we'll enjoy Pittodrie. It means an extra pie for Callum. You'll be pleased to see one less person in that South Stand pie queue. But yeah, let's hope that we do get the win. And as Graham says, if we do get the win, hopefully followed by a favourable draw. I know Sam Walker said if we win on Saturday, that's us one step closer to winning the cup. That's the sort of positive mentality that I expect to hear from Callum on this podcast as well. So we'll maybe end it on that little bit more of a positive note and hope for the best this weekend. Thank you very much to both yourselves for joining me on the podcast tonight, reacting live to that 3-0 defeat at Ibrox and looking ahead to the Scottish Cup. Thank you very much to all of you that have joined along. Great to see such high numbers, not only watching but interacting with the chat here on YouTube. Please remember to like the video, subscribe if you're new to the channel as well. Follow us on audio as well, if audio, of course, is your preferred platform when it comes to podcasts. Until next time, thank you very much for tuning in.